you to Leadershipisation, all things leadership. I'm an internationally awarded leadership and communication coach, and I am here most every Tuesday live having a conversation about all things leadership, leadershipization. Hey, what I've noticed is that a whole lot of my clients, when I sit down and review the kinds of things that are common amongst them, and one of those things is those various multi layers of leadership that almost converge around our ability to set boundaries. And often, what our ability to set boundaries in both our personal and our working life comes down to is, you got it, the ability to say no. It can be really hard to say no sometimes. So, what is, chucking stuff everywhere, what is setting boundaries? What is a boundary, even? Like, what are boundaries? Boundaries are they're these lines that we draw for ourselves in terms of our interaction and our comfort level around others. A simple example of a boundary might be something like this. Like, if one of your family members came and said, could they borrow your car? You might be more likely than not, to say, yeah, okay. But if a perfect stranger came and asked you if they could borrow your car, you're more likely to say no. That's kind of an example of a boundary. Now, there are 7 key types of boundaries, really. There's the physical, sexual, emotional, spiritual, financial, time boundaries, and then those other boundaries that are really non-negotiable. Now, we're not going to, and sorry, I'll come back a step. I'm racing. We're not going to look at dissecting every single one of these today, because they're conversations, larger conversations for another time. A lot of this comes down to our personal preferences, our gender, our past experiences, our culture, all of those kinds of things contribute to the boundaries that we have. Today, I really want to focus on ways to set healthy boundaries around saying no. Because saying no, like, it's such a simple word, but saying no really creates a dilemma for lots of people. Like, I don't know about you, but there are plenty of times, years ago, I'm much better at it now, but there have been plenty of times in my life where I've said yes, but I actually wanted to say no. Where I've said yes, however, I've done it with, a real, I wished I hadn't. And what I've come to realize is that when I say no, I'm actually directing my energy and my own priorities, and I'm setting a boundary. The journey to learning to say no involved me realizing that sometimes I was going to upset other people, but that was about them, not about me. And that if what I was able to do was establish my own boundaries and move past the fact that I was potentially upsetting others and move towards the fact that I'm serving myself, that made it easier for me to say no. So let's look at some tips that I have to share with you today around saying no. Well, the first one, understand and know your own limits. Now, in a leadership role in the workplace, we're really wanting to create a positive impression. So it's really, really easy to take on every single job. They've asked me, oh, can't say no, I better take it on. I'll be in their good books then. Yeah. So what happens is that we can take on every job. Or in a leadership role, we then think we need to have every single door, every single, our door open rather, every single moment. So we don't plan and schedule our day well enough to actually take time out, because we think that if we close the door, we're saying no. We're actually putting a boundary in. This is my time to focus and getting my work done. We need to look at understanding and knowing our own limits by being clear about what we've already got on our plate. What are the responsibilities and roles that we're already taking on? If you've got 16 people reporting to you already, do you need 3 more direct reports? It's that knowing your own limits. Realize that you're human, yeah? And be realistic about that. And work really hard to avoid overwhelm. When you know your own limits, you start to know, oh, this is too much. I'm feeling that this is too much. And that can help you to say no. The second thing is to really be self-aware. Now, if you've listened to a number of these leadershipization interviews and conversations that I've had, you'll know this is a big thing for me. The self-aware, the self-reflection. It's really important for you to be honest with yourself to do that. Become aware of when you say yes and you really wanted to say no. And think about what contributed to that. Are you stressed? Were you feeling like you're under pressure? You had no option but to say yes? Be aware of what those feelings are. Because when you're aware of what those feelings are, they're going to help you to ultimately move towards saying no. Yeah, they'll help you because you're aware of the feelings instead of giving into them and saying yes because you're worried about upsetting someone. You'll feel much more confident about saying no. A great example of that would be to use this phrase: oh, thank you for asking me, but no, not this time. Keep me in mind, or keep checking in with me though, and as soon as I can, I will. Or when I'm available, I will. Come up with some strategies or some phrases like that that become your go-to phrases for saying no. You're not flat out saying no, you're presenting another option, which is one of the other tools that I'll be mentioning in a few minutes. Yeah. Third thing for you to think about is to say no clearly. Sometimes, like we're so kind of anxious or concerned about saying no that we think we've said it, but we didn't say it clearly. And sometimes we talk ourselves out of a no and round to a yes by deciding, oh, I need to soften this. I need to come up with an excuse. I need to make them believe that I haven't got it in for them. And so we come up with, glorious excuse, even more complicated than the dog ate my homework. We come up with all sorts of reasons. Just tell the truth. No saves time. It saves time for everybody. It saves time of them thinking that you're going to do the particular thing, and it saves time for you being really stressed out. What I've found is that when you identify that now is not the right time, that opens the door for all sorts of other constructive discussions. It might help others realize that you are overwhelmed or overworked. You've got too many roles and responsibilities, too many daily tasks. It may help others help you to set your boundaries better. Shutting your door on a regular basis and not giving everyone free access to you is a great example of that. The fourth thing for you to look at today is this. Excuse me. Check to see, I just need to have a drink. I've had that summer cold and it just keeps circulating, often with a dry cough. The fourth thing for you to check out is, are there alternatives? And that example I gave you before of, hey, not right now, but check back later to see if I will be available. Excuse me. That's a great one. That's an alternative. Of course, now that I've talked about having a dry throat, I've got one. Life kind of does that to you, doesn't it? There are alternatives. So, not now. However, can we do this in the future? Or not now. Hey, no, too busy right now. However, there is this alternative. Yeah. So check to see, are there any alternatives? Because in saying no, you may be cutting off an opportunity. So looking for those alternatives will help to set you up to identify, is there a win-win that we can have here? Is there a win-win where you're not doing something because you're overstressed or overstretched or overwhelmed, and the person who's asking you something is actually getting what they're looking for? So this is where, as I said before, if you say no, it actually saves time and it can open that door to constructive discussions. This is where it might be in creating a win-win situation. You're able to say, well, I will have the time and the bandwidth to be able to do that if we can shift the time frame for these three things, or the priority for these things away. Can you see where I'm going? It's not a flat out no. It's a not now, and it's helping to get both needs met. Don't be the pleaser who just takes everything on. As I said earlier, know what your own limits are. Don't be that pleaser. So check and see and lead the conversation. Lead the conversation around, well, are there some alternatives here? And do that with confidence. What happens is that if we're feeling like we're going to be judged because we're saying no, that puts us in a more passive position, and so we're not assertive enough to actually say, not now, however, come up with the alternative and ask for what we want. We learn to ask assertively for what you want in the process of saying no. The fifth strategy for me to share with you today is what I call the power of the pause. Now, a pause is seriously, I always refer to it as the power of the pause, because a pause is so powerful in so many different situations. Another time I'll talk to you about a strategy that I call celebrating the silence. But this is now what we're looking at is the power of the pause. And when someone asks you to do something and you're getting this feeling of, I've got too much to do, maybe this isn't a good idea, or flat out don't want to go and spend time with all those people, or whatever that feeling might be, give yourself some space. Ask for the pause. Use the pause. Say to whoever is asking you, hey, let me get back to you. I'd just like to really consider that. And what that allows you to do is to actually step back. It allows you to step away from them being right there asking you, and it enables you to actually give it some consideration. Similar thing would be, let me check my diary and get back to you. Let me see what else is going on at the present time. Let me check my workload and get back to you. I just have to consider this. Yeah. When you do that, when you ask for the power of that pause, what you're actually doing is saving yourself from overcommitment. And often my clients tell me that often what happens is that when you say, let me get back to you, the other person either finds someone else to do it, or they recognize that it wasn't as demanding or urgent as they actually thought it was. So it can actually give them that pause as well, which is awesome. Like, helping others to recognize maybe this isn't as urgent as you think it is. The sixth one is kind of like the pause, same kind of powerful thing. Like embrace no. No is quite powerful. No opens the door. Saying no to some things opens the door to opportunities to say yes. And recognize that no can actually serve you. It's yours to use. It can help you to deal with your overwhelm. It can help you to deal with this feeling that you're overcommitted. It can help you to go home early so that you're not working so many extra hours. Being able to say no and setting the boundaries helps you to understand you don't need to take on everybody else's woes and worries and decisions, because you're empowering them to actually make their own. You're empowering them to understand that a closed door means that you've got work to do yourself. Learning to say no confidently steps you away from having to justify it. I work with many people who make decisions that are really good for their business, good for the performance and the productivity and the KPIs, but they are worried that they're not good for the team. And so they get into this glorious justification cycle, and spend more time justifying than they do actually saying no. Saying no will have a positive impact on you. Setting boundaries will have a positive impact on you. Setting those boundaries actually starts with you being able to say no. So, some homework. Actually get out there this week. I encourage you. In fact, I challenge you to get out there this week and say no. Say no more than once in a situation where whoever you're saying no to probably expects that you're going to be saying yes. Okay? How about you do that? All righty. Thank you so much for coming today. If you've got any questions, if you've got any comments, pop them in the chat. If you're watching the replay, #replay, put your question in the comments there. I'll circle around and check those out. If you have any specific topics that you might like me to cover, then please reach out. Final reminder, and this is happening all the time. Deliberate reset. Be part of a hand-picked group of 6 to 8 people on the same leadership journey as you, focused over 10 weeks on leadership, communication, and mental fitness. If you're interested in finding out more about it or putting an application in for our next iteration, hey, reach out and connect with me. Happy to chat with you about it. You can reach out to me and we'll book a time and get things happening. Share the information for you. So thank you Setting boundaries, learning to say no is where it all starts, both in your personal life and in your working life. See you next week.